Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. We are the Woodhounds. My name is Joe, and I'm here with my good friend, Dan. Dan, tell everyone hello.
Hey, Woodhounds. How's it going out there today? We're back, yes, with another fun-filled, exciting podcast.
Yeah.
The number one firewood podcast in the world.
I love it when you say that.
I always got to throw that in there. I don't know why, but it is fun to say.
Yeah.
If you're listening right now, just say to yourself out loud, I am listening to the number one firewood podcast in the world.
That's
and
right.
See how good that feels.
It was just yesterday or the day before. I was bored and I was on Spotify and I just typed in the word firewood.
Oh,
Wondering, curious to see what would come up. And of course, we were at the very top of the search, very first recommended return. Because there are like songs out there that about firewood, I don't know, or bands, that have the word in it. So they were all showing up in the search. There were a few podcasts that mentioned firewood, but, they're second fiddle to the Woodhounds.
Yeah, maybe an episode here or there, something about having a fire, but nothing like the Woodhounds.
Yeah.
Oh, so Joe, real quick, I just wanted to mention we have something special coming up for our listeners. Memorial Day weekend, we are going to throw out there an extra episode, and we are going to release it Memorial Day, 5 a.m, just as normal time. So look for that, Woodhounds.
I love it. That will give our Woodhound listeners an opportunity to have an extra day on their day off.
Yes, an extra episode coming to you Memorial Day, May 30th. Check it out.
Yeah, I think that the podcast thing is really cool. And I got started on podcasts myself probably within this year. And that was because my daughter had put Spotify on our phones. So I can listen to all my 80s music and 70s music when I was growing up. And then I started just searching for some of my interest areas in podcasts. And it's just neat to know that the Woodhounds is now on that list.
Yes.
Of big podcasts in the world.
Yeah, I think it's sometimes nice. It's like a nice break from like just listening to music to actually like listen to something that kind of like engages you and kind of makes you think as you're listening along with it.
I agree. I also noticed too, there's a lot of bad podcasts out there where just the audio is bad. You can't understand what anyone's saying. And, you could do a search on whatever the subject that you have an interest in. And you think, oh man, look, I've got some really cool things to listen to. But there's some of them are pretty bad. It's glad to know that we're not one of them.
Yes, we are not. And I don't think our listeners think we are either, because the response has been good. And guess what, Joe?
What's that?
We've received a few emails. We can do...
That means that we can begin our new segment called Listener Mail.
Yes, and I have quite a few of them, so I'm just going to... there's a couple. There's one here from Mike and Eric and Doug, and they all have, they sent in some possible topics, but I just, wanted to call out a few names this week and say we appreciate you guys sending the emails in, telling us how much you enjoy listening to the podcast, how much it's, kind of become part of your routine now, your weekly routine. So we appreciate that. And if anybody wants to send an email, the email address is thewoodhounds@gmail.com.
Yeah. Even just check in and say hello. We'd love to hear from you. And maybe we'll get to read your name on the episode.
Because I got thinking about, just kind of like how a lot of us, and I think a lot of people out there kind of have, obviously we have similar interests in firewood, but like my position with firewood, it's just a hobby. And I think there's a lot of people out there with firewood as a hobby, maybe not so much like monetizing the hobby, but just, making firewood to burn. And I think there's a lot of people with that interest of like, how would you transition from a hobby to a business like yourself?
Ooh. Yeah, interesting. The I think you leapfrog a step from hobby to business. And it seems that, at least here in the Mahoning Valley, we have a term and it's called the side hustle. And you hear that a lot
Oh,
out there.
yes.
And a side hustle is a term where you make money with your hobby. Um,
Mm,
so when you turn that into a legitimate business, that's when, so it goes hobby, side hustle, business, I think.
right. So the progression, yeah. So that's kind of then the hobby would be, if I use myself an example, I make firewood to burn. I end up making more firewood, so I decide to start selling a little bit of it. So that becomes the side hustle. But now, if I wanted to move into that business side of it,
Yes,
what would I need to do, or what are some things that, from your perspective, that would help me
sure.
do that?
I think part of this is definitional, Dan, where you are a business because you filed paperwork with your state as being a business. So, which means that the money that you're making with your side hustle is now reportable on your tax returns.
Yes.
So you would file as a business, you would secure a name for your business, you would get a tax ID number, you would get a vendor's license from the county that you live in, and you would become a business.
Wow. So I actually have done all of that already.
You have?
Yes. Yeah.
Well, then you're not a hobbyist, then you're a
Oh my
business.
goodness. What? But but see, I think that's where you can define yourself as a business and have all the paperwork and the name and all that. But I think then the other side of it is, how do you build that hobby out to be
Yeah.
a business?
Yeah. Well, and that's why I'm saying definitional it is, you just file and poof, you're a business. I think though that there are some fundamental shifts mentally and physically for a person who's a hobbyist or they have a side hustle and then they turn that into a business. And the one thing that I had always noticed myself, because I was on that path as well, and I still am, was when you are a hobbyist, your hobby makes sense and exists exclusively for you. You know what I mean?
Yep.
You
Yeah.
you enjoy what you're doing. Woodworking or making model airplanes or working on cars or baking, computer repair, firewood. You just do it because you enjoy doing it. And all of the little areas of a particular hobby, you steer your own self into that area because you just like to do it. Like working on cars. Maybe you hate doing body work, but you love working on engines,
Yeah.
you know. So you just do engine work. It's just what you enjoy to do. It's just what you enjoy doing. When you are a hobbyist, your interests steer your actions. Let's contrast that with a business. When you are a business, your interests, I guess they're important still because you're going to do what you enjoy doing, but your interests are steered towards what is best for your customer. So
Uh,
if your customer wants cupcakes, you don't you don't bake apple pies, you know? So it's like the market is talking to you and it is steering you and guiding you towards what you can do, what you can be profitable at, and that ultimately rests upon what the customer wants. Does that
mm,
make sense?
yes, it does. And you make that sound so I don't know, it just sounds so nice. It just sounds so easy. It sounds
Yeah. Well, I guess the execution part then is what becomes the problem.
yeah, that's where
It's doing it.
that's where it becomes a little I guess maybe difficult, or because obviously, if you start, you know, first thing I think of is if I'm transitioning from a side hustle to a business, I have to up my production. So
Yeah, I think so.
that's the one factor I look at and say, whoa, can I do that? Do I have
Hmm.
room to do that?
Yeah, I can speak from experience. So, I started firewooding as a hobby because we bought our outdoor wood furnace, and I just enjoyed making firewood. And how I made my firewood made sense to me. I could cut it any length I wanted. I would split it to the size that made sense to me in my furnace. But when I started my side hustle, I found out that a lot of people don't like firewood like that. They like it smaller. They like it split smaller and cut shorter than what I was cutting it. And then starting the business, profitability becomes the most important thing. You have to give the customer what they want. And if the customers don't want this, big chunks of wood, or if I can't make money selling big chunks of wood, then I'm going to adjust. The market is what determines what I'm going to do. And when I first started selling firewood, I had thought I was just going to sell very small quantities to residential, like people that that lived in condominiums, or these,
Yep. Yep.
where they don't have big garages and they can't store a lot of wood. I just saw where I would be delivering like small bundled firewood on like a subscription basis. Well, the very first customer I got was a restaurant.
Oh.
So, you know, uh, the majority of my wood went to that one restaurant until I could start building up my own inventory. And then another restaurant called, another restaurant called. By the end of my first, after the year that I got my first restaurant, I had 13 restaurants that I picked up in 1 year.
Wow.
Yeah. So the market was telling me, Joe, you got to change. You got to pivot. And had I stayed stubborn and said, no, I'm going to do this, I would have lost all of that profit opportunity with those restaurants. And I would still be chasing, these smaller residential customers.
Yep. I
Hmm.
think that's kind of where I'm at is, I don't deliver everything is pickup. And I'm kind of at that point where, if I wanted to expand, I would see where I would need to pivot into that offering deliveries, doing more, I guess, moving of the product out of my yard than just through my
Sure.
roadside stand.
Yeah. If I would have sold wood the way that I see firewood, I would be one of these people on the outside throwing rocks at someone else saying you're wasting your time, you can't make money selling firewood. because I admit it, I am cheap and I want the cheapest firewood I can find. I could care less what it looks like, I could care less what species it is. I just want it to be cheap. And that's where I think a lot of people, especially in firewood, they make firewood as a hobby, and then they try to sell it even when they become a business as what firewood means to them. They see
Yeah.
firewood as this big chunk of wood with ant holes in it and mud and mushrooms because they could care less about it. But if you listen to the market and listen to your customer, that's where you can start becoming profitable. I think people that get into firewood are inherently frugal. I'm
Yeah.
sure there's a few of them out there that are not, because why else would we go through all this hassle, you know, to heat our houses? Because, it's probably cheaper at the end of the day just to pay the gas man, when you
Yeah.
think of buying saws and splitters and doctor visits to the chiropractor, you know. Um,
Divorce attorneys.
yes, because your ex-wife has taken your pickup truck, so now
Yep.
you got to go out and buy another pickup truck. So it's probably cheaper at the end of the day just to pay the gas bill. But why do we do it? I think that people just have that inherent frugalness about them. They enjoy working with wood, they enjoy it. And then they start thinking, what can I do? I got some extra wood here. I'll go ahead and sell it.
And then you get your first payday. And oh boy,
Yeah.
cash in your pocket.
Yeah.
Whew.
That's what I love everything about running a firewood business. But the thing that I like doing the most is going to the bank to deposit all my checks. I love that.
That's what I when I lived downtown when I was in college. I don't know if you remember way back, when you were in college, you'd always go to the time machine, you'd go to the ATM and you'd take out $20, with your card. And that was like, you'd always have to do that.
Yes.
So that's kind of what I think of when I go down to my roadside stand and I open up the cash box and I pull out a 20 and I'm like, oh, I'm going to the time machine.
You
It's
can
kind
hear
of
like the
nice.
cash register making that cha-ching noise in the
Yeah.
background.
And that is the I guess the lure and the draw when you are doing it as a side hustle is you always are thinking, well, can I make more? Can
Yeah.
I make more? But I think there's a lot more involved with that than what people think. And I don't know. That's the one
Yeah.
thing holding me back is I don't know for sure if I would be able to keep up with demand. And then where are you?
Yeah. Well, I still think, that it's still at the end of the day, even though you should be listening to your customers and listening to the market, at the end of the day, it's still your business. And even I'm at a different level of production now than where I was a long time ago. But even now, I feel, I'm still probably going to do what I feel like doing because I think I'm at a crossroads right now where I can keep doing this the way that I am, but I think my growth is going to start flattening out because I just physically can't do everything.
Yeah.
And if I could, like if I drank a little bit extra more Dr. Pepper one day and ate, a big bowl of Wheaties, I could probably do even more, but I just don't feel like it. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So
Yeah.
I'm just going to keep it where it's at. Now, what I need to do next would be to start hiring or finding a new location, something with a firm parking lot, hard ground where I don't have to
Yeah.
deal with mud or a nice roof to work under. So that is, where I'm at, where when I think of growth, it doesn't necessarily mean when you become a business that you're going to grow because you can have zero customers.
Right.
Just you can do even worse as a business than you were as a side hustle. Sometimes that's just the way things go. But I just think that you know I took that step from side hustle to business, and there are some uncertainties or some scary things that we can talk about here. But after I did it, I'm glad I did. It's not that big of a deal.
Yeah. There's the scary things are what scare me. Like for example, one thing I'm not afraid to admit, and I have, I guess, a lot of self-awareness that I always, think about stuff beforehand. And
Sure.
it's just a matter like there might be days where if I had to go out there and split a cord of firewood and I didn't feel like it, it would become a chore and it would become something that I then no longer enjoyed. So
Yeah.
why would I want to put myself into that position of taking something I love doing and now all of a sudden I don't like doing it anymore?
Yeah. I think that's a very honest assessment,
Yeah.
you know. And I think that probably if you talk to a lot of hobbyists, that's what they enjoy about the hobby is that there's no pressure. Again, what you are doing means something to you, and that's good enough, you
Yep.
know. But think about then when people though, I got a little, I make, I mean, there's a guy down the road that makes these yard ornaments, really nice, like windmills and stuff. And you can tell he just bakes one month and he sticks it out in his front yard with a for sale sign on it, you know?
Yep.
And he doesn't have a strict production standards or anything. I think it's just whenever he feels like making one, he makes it and sticks it out in his yard for sale. And that's good enough for him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's kind of like where I'm at. But and then again, when you start looking at the amount of wood that I do sell, and I think to myself, well, geez, I could make a little more, and then maybe I could turn this into something other than just a side hustle.
Yeah.
There's always, I don't know, it's just crazy.
But
Some
what do you think you can get as a business that you can't get as a side hustle, because I
Mm,
don't think, you necessarily should be a business. I have some opinions for both ways. I would sit here and tell you, I think if you're going to sell money, or if you're going to sell firewood for money, I think you do. You file as a business. But I'm just curious for you though, why would you not want to file as a business? Okay. So, I mean, I'm telling you, Dan, you can, if you sell 10 cords a year, you know, as a side hustle, there's nothing stopping you from forming a business and selling 10 cords a year.
yeah. Yeah.
But
And
but I'm
that's,
just but I'm just curious why. Tell me other reasons. Okay, you're worried about growth, but let's take growth off the table. What else is there that would keep you from not wanting to file as a business?
well, time. And I have, like I said, I have filed, but I wrapped everything that I do as far as like my other side hustle hobby, content creation. I wrapped that all into one. So, you
Uh
know,
huh.
firewood is part of that. And
Okay.
so, yeah, it's just like I said, I just always think about the having it become something I no longer enjoy doing, or not being able to keep up with demand. And then I'm out there splitting wood till 11 o'clock at night. But then on the other side of the coin, it's like, well, it would be nice to make a little bit more money, because then maybe it would open up opportunities to, you know, not have my 9 to 5 job.
Yeah. Right. Well, I will tell you what I was most hesitant of, and what was the largest hurdle that was preventing me from filing as a legitimate business.
Yes. What is that? That is what
It
I would like to know.
it was filing as a legitimate business.
Oh,
I don't mean to sound flippant, but I'm serious. The filling out that paperwork and making myself official, and making myself now have to file a tax return as a business was enough for me to not want to do it. And I had put off my plan for a number of years. In fact, I had other brilliant business ideas throughout the years that I just never put into action, simply because it was too scary to fill out the paperwork and then be on the hook to file a tax return. I was scared of having to find an accountant, thinking that it was going to cost too much money, that I was going to lose too much money to taxes. And it was going to be a burden, or like a violation of my privacy or something, to have all my
yeah.
papers registered with the state.
And I think
But what?
that's probably a big concern for a lot of people out there. It's just that whole idea of having to pay taxes.
Yeah, and I was right there with you. And I think too, like, if you really just want to sell a few cords a year for beer money or just for fun, I think it's probably prudent to just stay as a side hustle. Now, guys, we're talking about the United States here. So if you're
Yes.
in Australia or the UK, okay, there might be different laws about the black market. Okay. So selling firewood to your neighbor here in the United States, is technically, well, it's unofficially no one's business. It's just between two buddies that or just two people that have a private transaction.
Right.
But at least here in Ohio, they changed the law a couple years ago where sales tax is now applied to firewood. So I also have to charge sales tax on a sale, and then I also have to report my income on my tax return at the end of the year. And I'm here to tell you, and I'm talking to you out there, Woodhound listener, who has been sitting on this brilliant idea, but you're not doing it because it's just too much burden to do all this paperwork and add all this hassle with the tax returns and stuff. I am telling you right now, it is no big deal at all. And get out there and do it. You can file your paperwork yourself online with your Secretary of State or whoever does it in your state.
Yep.
And there are so many accountants in your hometown that will do your tax return probably for $100 or less,
Yeah.
and that's what I'm just when I decided to make that change from side hustle to business, that's where everything changed for me because all of a sudden these restaurants would start dealing with me because I was legitimate. They they wanted the one restaurant requires an insurance policy, and that was the next hurdle. I was like, I don't have to deal with insurance, But I mean, serious. My liability insurance is like $50 a month, I think. And when I look at all of the money that I get in sales from just that one restaurant, it makes it worth it,
Yeah.
you know? And that's another thing that gives you street credibility, is that you are a registered business, you are insured, you're professional, and that separates you immediately, guys, immediately from every other person that sells firewood in your area, you
And
know?
you're making it sound like there's actually quite a few advantages of being filed as a business.
Jeez, you better believe there is. You better believe there is. And that's what, I just did the video where I track my mileage when I drive, and you get what, I don't know, is it like 55 cents a mile now or something, towards your taxes. Every every inch that you drive is tax deductible. The
Yeah.
gasoline, the saw that you bought, the gasoline that you put in it, all of your supplies, the wood, if you buy your firewood, if you're buying your logs, all of that, you know, and that is all of the things that you're going to leave on the table and not realize if you don't file as a business.
Yeah. You may think that you're making more with the side hustle, but there's probably
Yeah.
more advantages uh, with being a business.
Well, and that's why I said to each their own, and whatever your goals are, they're your goals. But if you are a person like me where you think, there's something here that I'm not seeing, guys, it's because you need to make that step, and you
Yeah.
need to take those extra steps and become a legitimate business, build your brand, with your name, a logo. um, I just found the power of an $8 t-shirt,
Oh yeah.
what it brings to you in your eye of the customer. If you go on a sales call to a restaurant or a convenience store, if you got a shirt with your name on it, oh, it just, you know, it's just one of those things that just separates you from everyone else. And then for me, the most important thing that I had ever done was I got a website. Absolutely.
Oh yes.
Got
Yep.
to have a website. Yep.
And that, in your opinion, that makes you again stand out above the typical Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist or
Oh,
any.
good heavens, yes.
Yeah.
I can even, for my area in the Mahoning Valley, there's not very many other a firewood companies. Okay, there's a lot of tree service companies that sell firewood, but I think I am the only full-time firewood company out here. Everyone else are just part-timers
Yeah.
or tree service.
Yeah.
So the fact I have a website, if you were to search, if you lived in the Mahoning Valley and typed firewood for sale near me, I'm like the
They would.
first 6 websites that Google returns, because I'm the only one. And I don't even advertise, Dan. I don't put up a single ad in any paper. I don't on a cork board at the grocery store or on Facebook, nothing. It is just my website. I get every sale from my website.
And is that how it's always been, or did you start out like? How did you mentioned that you were going after like the residential
Yeah.
people? Did you advertise then, or how was what was the progression of getting to this point of no advertising?
I had went a number of years in the wintertime where I would get bored and I started blogging. And I started a blog called Ohio Woodburner.
Oh,
Because OWB for outdoor wood boiler, and I just changed it to Ohio Woodburner. So I bought the domain ohiowoodburner.com, and it was my blog. Well, it would get like 4 or 5 people that would visit it every year, and the one winter I was bored. So I thought I'm going to turn OWB into a firewood business. And even though it wasn't. So I just started tinkering around and I added a few pages to it. And then I studied. So if you have a website, I mean, you can seriously, guys, make it yourself and you can usually do it for free. But just because you have a website doesn't mean anyone can find it. It has to be, and this is a nerd term here, it has to be optimized. So I learned SEO, search engine optimization. I just Googled it and I just
Yep.
studied it and learned how to optimize your website. You just use certain words. And then on your pages, your menus, there's like little fields where you can put in like these, what are they called? Meta fields
Meta
where,
tags. Yep.
yeah, Google can sniff it. Okay.
Yes.
But no one else can see it. But when you search through Google, they sniff for firewood, Mahoning Valley, and bam, Ohio Wood Burner shows up on their search engine. So that's all I did. And I went ahead and filed as a business and I turned my page on. And it was in the first week I got a phone call from a restaurant. And it was a major league restaurant too. And this is how impactful this website was, guys. Okay. Remember, I had at that time, a rusted out, gray F-150. No t-shirts. I had nothing. I just started my business. And the guy called me while I was out on the road and I answered my phone and he said who he was. And I'm trying to keep my truck between the lines because I was so excited that someone actually called me. And I told him, he says, well, how much would you charge me for a cord? And I says, well, I don't have my price because I didn't know what I'd charge him. I was just totally unprepared for this. And he said, and this is where I'm getting with this on how impactful the website was. He says, well, I tell you what, when you get back to your office, call me back and we'll work out a deal here. And I was just
Nice.
laughing because this guy thinks I have an office, my office is my couch at my house, and that was all because of the power of a website. Guys,
Yeah.
even if you want to have a side hustle, get a website. Absolutely, get a website.
Yeah. I
Uh-huh.
remember I started out with Facebook Marketplace. And I still remember I put up my first ad on an afternoon on a Thursday because I figured, well, if somebody wants it, I could take that weekend to deliver it. So I advertised a face cord of firewood. And within 2 hours, I had 3 people messaging me.
Yeah.
And the one thing I never took into consideration was to find out where the people were located because I had advertised that I was going to deliver it. So the first guy, he was taking his time getting back to me. The second guy, he, again said, "Well, let me get right back to you." And then the third person, this lady, she responded right away, and so I was just like, "All right, the first person that's says they want it, I'm going to give it to them." And just by luck, this lady lived a mile and a half down the road from me.
Sweet.
And the other 2 people were all like 25, 30 miles away. So, and then that made me realize, oh boy, if I would have taken that first guy's offer, or, if he would have got back to me, I would have said yes. And I would have been driving 30 miles out of town somewhere to make that
Sure.
delivery. So yeah,
With all that weight in your truck.
it was one of those things where I learned then, to have the patience and not
Oh
just
yeah.
jump on the first thing that comes your way.
Mm-hmm. And I've made every mistake, and I wouldn't even call them mistakes. Just I've done something that I learned that I don't want to do it like that again. And the first thing for me was Facebook. Yeah, I I I stay away. I get on the Facebook to buy firewood. Serious, because who uses Facebook are people looking for a deal,
Yep.
and that's who I try to stay away from. Who I sell firewood to.
Yeah.
So I stay off of Facebook. I stay off of Craigslist. I don't put anything in the Bargain Hunter. We got, like a local ad paper that goes around here once a week. Don't put anything in the grocery stores. I just use my website. And so we have a number of suburbs in our area where all the big houses are. And that is just a theory that I have. I can't prove it, but I'm pretty sure that I'm right. That the people that's got these gigantic houses and these big great rooms with these gigantic fireplaces, and they never use them. And it's because they don't trust firewood. They don't trust firewood delivery. And that is because of all these stories I get when I deliver firewood to people, that they've quit buying firewood because yeah,
Oh, yes.
everything I'm
Yep.
going to tell you here is the God's honest truth, Dan. This is my ears heard every single one of these. The delivery driver was drunk. My firewood was filled up with beer cans. His truck leaked oil all over my driveway. The firewood guy went pee in my front yard. You know, the guy never showed up when he said he was going to. I
Yep.
thought he was going to rob me when he pulled into my driveway. I heard all these things. So I go after I go after a high end residential. So in my search engine optimization, I put the names of these expensive cities here in the Mahoning Valley, and that's all I put on
Oh,
there, and that kind of steers all of the search results to people in those areas.
wow. Very
Yeah, and
crafty.
so, so I can charge a premium, and that's what I do. So I try to stay away from customers like me, because I wouldn't spend money for my firewood, but
Wow.
I'm not.
Yeah,
But I'm not the customer. That's one of my
exactly.
rules, is that I am not the customer. People do. I would never buy bundled firewood. But guess what? There sure are a lot of people in
Oh,
this world that buy bundled firewood. I
everyone.
would never buy a bag of smoking chips. Are you serious? You know, but guess what? There's a lot of people out there that buy smoking chips. So, my job is to service the customer. It's not to be the customer.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
good way to look at it. It's very
Yeah.
very insightful how you articulated that. The hobby being for yourself, and with your
Yeah.
business, it's the customer that you're focused on. So
Yeah. Mhm. And that's what I really do. I think that's why so many people sell firewood as a hobby or as a side hustle, because it's fun, you know? And you're not looking to get rich, or it's not like your sole source of income, like it is for me. And it's just something that you do for beer money, or just for a rainy day fund, or you're going to buy your wife something, for Christmas. And it's a chance too to meet people, because I've found that everyone that buys firewood is nice, and you get to know people and get to like them. To me, that's one of the hidden joys of being in the firewood delivery service, is just how much fun it is. The people are nice. I remember
yeah.
when I worked in auto parts, everyone that came into the store to buy something, they were mad, you know, because their car's broken down, and they got to spend all their disposable income for the month on a starter.
Yep.
But firewood's a different story. When I show up at restaurants, I mean, the cooks and everyone, they just come out and hang out with me, and
Well,
I don't think they do that with the guy delivering fish.
but that could be just because you are you. I mean that. I don't know if it's the your firewood, or just your smiling face, and you know charming good looks and all that stuff.
Here's your $20 bill.
But anyway, yeah, I think this conversation, we may have to revisit it again, because I'm thinking there might be listeners out there that have their gears turning right now after listening to this, and
Yeah,
they may
could be.
have some more questions.
Yeah.
So,
I am going to give all of our listeners a task. Okay.
oh,
If they are serious, if they have been hearing that inkling throughout their life about, do it, you can do it, but they never do. And I don't care what their hobby is, but they've always thought about starting a business, but they never have. The most important thing that I ever did was that I finally did it.
yeah,
And I'm serious. It is, on the outside looking in, it looks like it's just an impossible feat. But when you're on the inside, it's easy, guys. It is easy. And it is so easy is that I don't know why it took me so long to do this in the first place. So file with your state, register your name as a business, file your papers, and get yourself a free website. and you're in business.
You are in business. There you go.
Yeah. I mean, you can even get a free phone number, for crying out loud, you
Yeah.
know?
It's amazing what you can
Yeah,
do
it is.
nowadays.
Shoo, you better believe it. I had heard someone said that it has never been easier to start a business in the history of this country, and I gotta believe it.
I would believe,
Yeah.
yeah, I would too.
Yeah, it's
Yep.
one of the things with the internet. I'm serious. Think about in the old days, Dan, we had yellow pages, you
Oh
know?
my goodness. Yeah.
Everyone was trying to leapfrog because it was all alphabetical. It would be uh double A firewood, then someone would start a business triple
Triple
A
A.
firewood, then there'd be 4A
Yep. Oh yeah. Yep.
Yeah. We used to have the yellow pages. You used to have stockbrokers. Yeah, and everything is just, I don't know, it's just right. You got the whole world at your fingertips with the
Right.
internet.
Well, just like you mentioned, filing your business, you can do it all online,
Yeah.
everything. You don't have to leave your house.
Yeah, there are all kinds of services online to help you file your business. As a sole proprietor or a LLC or an S corp, and you pay them like $200-300 to file the paperwork. Well, I started looking into it, and all they do is they get on to the Ohio Secretary of State website, download the form, fill it out, and
And
turn it in for you. And I was thinking, well, why in the heck can I just do that myself?
yep. That's yeah,
So
that's
I did.
what I
I
did.
did it myself. I just did it myself, and I paid the state of Ohio filing fee, which was like $50 or something. So, whatever state you live in, there's a process, and it's well spelled out on one of your government websites under their FAQ, and just get it done, man.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I hate to cut this short, but I just got a notification on my phone. My flight is leaving, and I need to hit the road to catch
I was hoping you could mow my grass before
it.
you leave.
Yeah, I don't want to stay a minute longer down here than I have to.
Okay,
No offense, but I need to get
that's
home.
fine. Okay. All right. Well, maybe it's time we start playing the music then.
Yeah, I got the band ready. We're
Okay.
ready to hit it.
Strike up the band.
Yes. All right. So again, Woodhounds, hope you enjoy the episode. Joe, as always, great hanging out with you once again. Couldn't ask for a better time down here in the Woodhound studio.
Yes, it's always great to have you here, Dan. And I just really enjoy spending time and hanging out with all of our Woodhounds in the world.
Yes. So if you got any questions, if you want to know more about side hustle to business, let us know. Woodhounds@gmail.com. Otherwise, Joe, I got to go catch that flight. So everyone
Alrighty.
have
Be cool.